Hi, and welcome to the video build log of the Dynam F-4U Corsair. You know, the Corsair has been a popular model for many years. I can remember building plastic model kits of the F-4U when I was a kid. The first production model of the F-4 Corsair flew in June of 1942. At that time, it was assigned primarily to the Marine Corps while they worked out a few bugs discovered during the carrier trials. In smaller Central American air forces, the F-4U flew as late as the 1970s, so it had a very long service life. The Corsair flew with a 2,000 horsepower double Wasp engine. It had a wingspan of 41 feet and it was about 33 feet long, which makes this Dynam model about a 1/10 scale. An interesting fact about the Corsair is the double gull wing configuration that it's known for was built primarily to provide ground clearance for the large prop. It got the fuselage up away from the ground with enough room for the propeller to spin due to the relatively short legs of the landing gear. Well, enough about that. Let's take a few minutes and see what's in the box. As you can see, I've got the model out of the box and it's come through the shipping process in pretty good shape. In fact, I didn't notice any scuffs or dings on any of the plastic parts. Each of the major assemblies was put in the box in its own plastic bag, and those plastic bags were then put into separate boxes within the large shipping box that you saw just a moment ago. So I'm really pleased with the overall condition of the model as it comes out of the box. As with most of the Dynam warbirds, they're really just a few parts. We might call this a build log, but in many ways it's just an assembly log, because as you can see, there's just a handful of things. It looks like, as with some of the other warbirds, the tail feathers bolt onto the fuselage. The fuselage comes all assembled. It's got the hatch here for getting into the model itself, where there's plenty of room for the battery. And then this is the ARF model, so I have a receiver and to put in here. Comes with a very nice pilot. He's painted up pretty nicely at the canopy, and then some glue for the pilot. And this is kind of a nice change. If you've had some of the other Dynam warbirds, you notice sometimes they got some goofy looking pilots. This one is scale, and he's painted up and configured for the time that this F-4 would have been flying in World War II. Now, this particular model is modeled after a Corsair that would have flown a little bit later in the Second World War or in through the Korean War time frame, which means it's painted with blue on all sides, top and bottom. Well, as I think about these old eyes of mine and maintaining aircraft orientation in flight, I think I'm going to take this to the paint shop before I start building it to configure it with the three-tone color, where there's a light blue band along the fuselage and then some white on the bottom to help me keep track of what is up and what is down when the airplane's airborne. For those of you young guys with good eyesight, you're going to be able to pop this thing together right out of the box, because it really is in really good shape. So we'll take a few minutes and be back after some time in the paint shop. And you can see what I was talking about in terms of the two-tone colors here. On the fuselage, we have the light blue along the bottom, or in the middle, and then white along the bottom. And then the same with the wings. We have this white section that corresponds to the center part of the model, and then the light blue on the outside as well. And then we painted a blue tail according to some of the photographs of models of this era. Now, for the paint, I'm using an airbrush, a little 2-gallon compressor, and then craft paint that you could get at a Michael's store, that kind of a thing. And so this one is Americana brand. I used the whitewash color of white, and then I found this Folk Art brand that has the coastal blue, which turned out to be a very good match for the light blue that was on this model. Now, there were a couple of things in the instructions that are assumed. One of them is that it talks about connecting the flight controls, but as you can see, the control horns aren't mounted on the tail feathers yet, so we're going to do that in just a moment. And then it also talks about putting the pilot in the cockpit, or it doesn't talk about putting the pilot in the cockpit, and so we're going to do that here next. So let me move some of this stuff out of the way, and we'll do those two tasks before we start following the instructions as outlined in the manual. So let's start by putting the control horn on the rudder first, and you want to make sure that you have the part of the control horn that the clevis attaches to on the correct side. And so the control arm coming out of the fuselage is on the right side of the airplane, and so we're going to put it on the right side of the fuselage. What I like to do is just put just a drop of glue, and I'll use the glue that came with the kit right there, and then push the screws through the hole. Just like that. Notice that the holes that you'll be attaching the clevis to are facing forward, and they're right over the hinge line of the rudder. So you don't want the thing pointing backwards, so watch out for that. For most of you guys, that's going to be self-evident, but if you're new to this, that's what we'd be doing. Then on the other side, you'll see that there's just a little bit of the screw coming through there. And so, again, we're going to put just a drop of glue there. Then match the holes up on the plate so that they fit through, and so the plate can be vertical. So that's the way for that. We don't want the plate there at a goofy angle. Drive the screw in there. Again, using the screwdriver that came with the kit. I'll get that aligned and screw that firmly into place. Now remember that this is kind of soft plastic, and so you're going to want to get it screwed tight, but you don't want to strip because the threads are just threading into the plastic on that plate. And so now we've got it in there, and then it's nice and flush, so you're not going to have to cut anything off. And what I'm going to do is just take a little drop of glue to fill up those threads on this side and reduce the chance that those things back out. So that's really all there is to that. We've got two more to do. They are here on the elevator, and again, you want to make sure in this case the control rods are coming out of the bottom part of the fuselage, and so you're going to want the control horn on the bottom, and you're going to want it facing forward again with the flat edge over the hinge line. So I'm going to take a minute and do that, and we'll be back in just a second. So as you can see, I've got the control horns on the airplane. They're over the hinge line. They're pointed forward right here. And when I put these through, these screws are a bit longer because the elevators themselves aren't as thick as the rudder is. So the screws are the same size, but the surface is thinner. And so when I pushed those through, I got them started in both the respective holes and then kind of worked my way up a little at a time on each one, and then screwed them tight enough that it started to collapse the foam a little bit. Now the other thing I like to do with these, because I don't like these screws sticking out, is I'll probably take my rotary tool with a cutting disc on it and just zip those off so they're not sticking up so far. Remember, when you do that, however, it's a good idea to get a piece of cardstock that's that side and lay it on the area as kind of a template, so that when you cut this off and the little hot piece of metal goes flying off, it doesn't melt into the foam and ruin your finish. I've done that before, and it's really frustrating when that happens. So a little piece of cardstock to cover the foam when that falls off is going to be a really good idea. So now we're ready to join that part of the instructions, because we've got these pretty much in the position that the instructions assume. The other thing that we have left to do, however, is to get the pilot mounted in the cockpit, and that's going to be pretty simple. There comes with the kit a little tube. It's called pilot glue. I've opened it up and smelled it, and it's nothing more than some thin CA, and CA is fine on this EPO type of foam. And so what I'm going to do is put some of the CA on the bottom of the pilot here, enough that he'll stick. And then he's just, you know, a millimeter or so wider than the cockpit, so I'm going to put him in at an angle and then just kind of spin him back into the back part of the cockpit so his head's against the headrest there, and push him down, and that pressure from side to side is going to allow him to stay nice and tight while the glue sets up. And so this is a nice pilot in this particular plane. He's painted up as the period would suggest. Now the last thing to do then is going to be to put the canopy on. Now you could probably, if you'd like, kind of see where this canopy line is and cut the canopy out, but essentially it is built so that it'll just fit over the whole thing. It's painted nicely, and as you can see, it fits without doing a real close cut around the edge of the canopy. And so that's what I'm going to do. Your choice. Instead of using the CA or the rubber cement, contact cement that comes with the kit, however, I'm going to just use some white canopy glue and put it around the plastic part of the canopy. I may need to take it off sometime, so I'm just going to kind of take it around the edge so it'll set up. This canopy glue kind of looks like thin Elmer's glue, and what's neat about it is that it dries clear. So if you've got it on a clear canopy, which we don't in this particular case, it would dry clear. Okay, it's looking good. So we're going to kind of spread it out a little bit and drop it on. Make sure we've got a good seal. I think I'm going to put a couple of rubber bands here on it as it's drying so it keeps tight. But now we've got the pilot and the canopy mounted, and so we're ready to go there. Pretty easy.